Welcome, everybody. This is the third in this year's series of webinars put on by IVRPA. IVRPA, the International VR Professionals Association. We are the only international association dedicated to help VR, XR creatives be more successful in all aspects of their careers, whether it's the creativity or the business aspect, to help whether you are an independent or whether you're working for a company. We hope to provide you with skills and information that help you be more successful. And today we have Guido from Warp VR. Warp VR is heavily involved in VR training. We, in previous seminars, have talked about the importance of VR training, how effective it is how effective it is.
Yeah.
Big roadblock to getting into it, though, is background platform, and that's a huge thing that Warp VR provides. If I didn't mention it before, my name is Scott Whitty. I have the supreme honor of being this year's president for IVRPA. Let's see. Look, a little information here. On the chat, if you want to send a message that everybody is able to see, then be sure that you click the little blue balloon that says "to everybody" or "to everyone," and then it will go to everyone. All right. And got it. Okay. All right. So then we'll get started with the actual webinar. And Guido, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Very good. Thank you, Scott, for having me. Good morning, good day. Guido Helmhorst, one of the co-founders of Warp VR. Or let's say based in the Netherlands. And we have been in business for about 7 years now. So, we've been in the, let's say, VR space quite a long time. But before that, I spent almost 10 years at KLM, so the airline, where I did various things, Air France, KLM stuff, in the IT, but also in innovation. But in the end, it was the organization, the place where I saw the challenge of situational training and on-the-job training, and how do you do that for large groups of people in an operational environment as an airline business is. And in this case, it started in the engineering and maintenance, so the hangar part of KLM, where I kind of was challenged with the question, okay, so how can we improve evacuation training? And we all know evacuation training, right? So that's where the alarm goes off, and then we have to walk outside, and probably we follow our colleagues because they know where to go. And then hopefully we end up outside, and then we walk back in. And then we are trained, right? That was kind of the idea. And at that time, I also came across virtual reality, specifically 360 video. And I thought, okay, if we can make that interactive, then we can kind of create scalable, repeatable, real life simulation scenarios, which will enable, training large groups in those situations. So that's where I began, and thank you again for having me. Personally, I have 3 boys, so also some chaos at home. Maybe I'll make some training scenarios about that later on in life, but that's the home situation, living in the Netherlands, and pleasure to be here.
Okay. You'll see other people on the screen. These are other board members. We're going to try a little bit different format where we're basically all involved in interviewing Guido, and just see how that works. And then later on, we're going to be opening up to questions from the entire group. If you want to put your question into the chat, feel free. If you want to actually speak to Guido, just raise your hand and we'll give you that opportunity.
For sure.
So in any case, okay, so, Guido, yeah, give us a little bit more of the background.
Sure.
Why should people be interested in VR training, especially our people who are generally VR content creators? And by
Okay.
the way, I'll have that survey that we will put up in just a minute or two, a poll that you had suggested.
Yeah, okay. That's good. All right. So maybe off the bat, right? So we're talking about VR training, which is when we started 7 years ago was kind of a small concept, but nowadays it's a big concept. And it entails a lot. So maybe first off, within the VR training space, we are very much focused on what we are calling the kind of the real life part of town, because we don't deal in 3D. We don't deal in 3D avatars or computer simulated environments. We deal with 360 video, right? So which to me is all about emotion, about people, about human interactions, about using sometimes actors in order to get really close to real life situations. So that's one part of it. Then if you look at the why should you care and why should it matter and why should businesses care about it, it's all about, to me at least, it's about how skilled or how prepared is your workforce for the situations that they might come across, and specifically high stake, intense, stressful situations. Because if everything is, well, let's say okie dokie, then things tend to matter a little bit less. But and as an example, we did a bank robbery scenario for a bank in Austria, where before VR training, they had somebody drive around the country with a PowerPoint slide under his or her arm, going to all the branches and doing the training afternoon there. And then that was once a year if they were lucky, and then it will moved on. But the core of the question is, were those people really ready for the situation of being robbed in real life? And of course, the answer to that question is no, right? So as a business, as a company nowadays, we don't have the ability to measure, to ensure, to know whether people are ready for the situation that can occur. And those situations can be very disastrous, and a small human error, a human factor, can have huge consequences, right? So that's where, to me, the real kind of why and why now, and why it's important, because that's a problem we as a community, as creators, as instructional designers, as can solve in a way using VR.
Are you able to actually quantify this in any way?
Uh,
Like numbers, you know,
yeah,
if I want to go into a potential client
yeah,
and try to sell them on why they should try this, that they've been doing it the old way forever. Why should they put their neck out on the line and actually
yeah.
propose up the chain that we try this new VR thingy?
Okay. So of course, let's say numbers are important, and we'll talk about that. And at the same time, it's, let's say, still early days, and sometimes tricky to assess it all the way down to, let's say, the real impact. But let's explore a couple of avenues. So, for example, the bank robbery. Right. So there are statistics out there that I believe like 50% of people who experience a robbery, let's in general, have a chance of getting PTSD. Of those 50 people, you have a 60% chance that people will actually leave your company, because after 3 months in sick leave, they will not return. Which means that if you can connect being ready for that situation and reducing the actual impact of PTSD, the actual impact of that robbery, you can, as a business, well, of course, be better for your people, right? So that's one, but also reduce the number of sick leave, hours and days you have to reimburse, and you can avoid replacement costs, which are around, well, depending on the position, 4,000 per person, or even more, right? So the business case, especially when you look at the big numbers at scale, can be created like that.
Okay. It strikes me that the biggest selling point is that whole idea of, instead of looking at a book and trying to apply what you have in that book to a real life situation that suddenly is thrown on you,
Yes.
that you sort of experienced it in VR and you're going to be leagues ahead.
Yes. So you already have that baggage, that experience in your bag before actually experiencing it, right? So sometimes, as I try to explain, okay, so where are we, or what is the positioning? So if you look at learning, you basically have, on the one hand, you have e-learning, right, which is super scalable, cost effective, all that, but it's very theory and knowledge focused. And on the other end, you have the kind of the real life exercises, right, with role playing, maybe actors, all that. But that is, well, let's say, effective to a certain extent, but it's very costly, and it's often a one-time event, right? So if we have today, we have actors present, tomorrow they're not there again, right? So there's no way for people to actually practice or apply that theory, that real life, or that the knowledge they gained in a real life situation frequently, right? Because we all know that changing behavior is difficult, right? It's a challenge. We need to repeat. We need to learn by doing. We need to experiencing consequences in order for us to change that behavior. So that's where now that's the gap we're trying to solve, right? To enable you to practice in real life situations frequently and at scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it strikes me that in how we behave will be determined by what our experience is. And the first time we're actually presented with something that's unusual,
Yes.
it's like, what do I do again? What was I supposed to say? How should I handle this? And but after you've gone through that a couple times in reality, let's say a teacher in a classroom dealing with an unruly student.
Yes.
Once you've dealt with that a couple times, now you're more comfortable with it, and you can do it.
Yes.
Well, I've seen that sort of training of teachers in a seminar kind of a thing. And you have a presenter up front who will present you with a case study, and you'll say, "Oh yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty brilliant." And
Yes.
maybe between the couple teachers, they'll try to play act a little bit, but that's not the situation that you're in when you finally are encountered by it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's, to me,
Yeah,
brilliant.
and that in addition, so you can do maybe let's say an actor or at such a conference, but it's in a way it's still a sterile environment, right? So there's no real pressure. There's no, so maybe maybe to offer another, let's say, inspiration or example is a CPR training, right? Something we all know, at least know what it is. But if you've done the training, that's often in a classroom with a PowerPoint slide where you have, let's say, the 5-6 steps you have to do within and you're encouraged to do it within, I believe, 6 minutes, because then all that. But that's all theory. And of course, there's also the Rescue Annie, where you can perform the actual, let's say, practice of the CPR. But what is missing is the whole part that, okay, so now you're ready and there's the door. And we wish you the best of luck if you ever encounter it in a real life situation. Whereas that real life situation has a huge impact on you emotionally in order to remember and to actually be present in the moment to say, oh yeah, I remember the 5 points on the PowerPoint slide. Because, you know, when you're at a station and somebody collapses, it's chaos, people screaming, and there might be family members involved. So that's a whole different ballgame. And that's indeed the type of experience we try to give you before you actually experience it, in order for you to be, well, more on the ball, able to perform under that pressure.
Right. Okay, let's see if we can try to run. Okay, this is not what I was supposed to do. Sorry. I thought I knew how to run a poll. And where did it go? All right. Yeah.
Okay, that's
I
easy.
am.
How do you deliver the VR content? Headset, screen?
All right. So on the content, and we also have some a question around 3D being more emotional. So we'll get to that. Okay. So on the console, how do we deliver that? Maybe briefly starting. So at Warp VR, we have a platform solution, right? So which enable other people to create the real life experiences, as I just mentioned, which are kind of choose your own adventure type of experiences, where you really, as a user, make choices and experiencing consequences. Now, so the platform allows for, well, let's say 3 things or 3 pillars. So it's the whole storyboarding, where you create your whole scenario. It enables the distribution, and you will be able to see the analytics, right? Or what choices did people make? How fast did they make them? All that type of stuff. So on the distribution part, that's indeed where, okay, so how do I get it to my users? So obviously there are levels of immersiveness, if that's a word, where you play it, of course, in a VR headset. Yes. So we have an app on Pico and Meta. You can download it, and then you can log in and you can play the scenarios there. Same goes for an iPad or a phone, even. So you download the app from the App Store. You can log in, and again, you can play in 2D mode or even in VR mode when you're on your phone. And nowadays, we also have a web player, so you can also play it just on a website, on a desktop or laptop, right? So there are different modalities. You one time create the scenario, you put everything in order, you hit publish, and once it's published, it's available to all, depending on which channel they decide to choose on where to play it.
I figured out how to launch a poll now, so I'm going to
Awesome.
do that right
There we
now.
go.
All right, it should be, I believe it's available to everybody right now, except I'm afraid that panelists may not be able to participate. No, I guess
No.
not. So if people could just answer those questions, it'll give a little bit more context for who the audience is and how this fits in.
Yes.
It's interesting, more people than I thought. Oh, I guess not. Okay.
Okay. So maybe meantime, I can
Yeah.
there I see let's say two additional questions, right? Which are do you film with cameras like Ricoh, Theta, or Matterport? The Theta, I believe, can, Matterport not, because Matterport is a very different technology. So we, in a way, use, or you can use, or our users use the 360 cameras that are out there, Insta360, um, and there are a couple of others, but in that sense, the 360 video cameras, which are nowadays, back when we started, we built our own rig with 6 GoPros, and it was a whole stitching issue, and it was a real pain to actually get something going. But nowadays, the 360 cameras that are out there, kind of what is it, between business and amateur, or consumer use, pro consumer, I believe, are quite up to the task to film decent content. We always advise to add a separate microphone, so your sound is also up to par. But let's say a starter kit for to get started is, well, relatively easy. So in a way, to start is that you need that, your camera, your microphone, your stand, and you basically need the platform in order to create your interactive stories, in order to really have a very efficient and effective workflow. And I'll show you in a bit how that actually looks like, to give that a little bit more context. But that's on the let's say cameras. The other question, was an interesting one. Wouldn't 3D provide a more emotional experience? I'm curious why you prefer 2D 360 video. Yeah, and it's interesting to me that you, Alexia, that you mentioned 3D and emotional, because to me, well, again, when we talk about, let's say, and that depends on the learning objective and what you're after. But to me, when you're after human interactions, where stressful situations, where your context really has an impact, and where therefore the realness is important, there's only one way, and that's, to me, is 360 video. Because in order for you to create a 3D environment, which with avatars who, let's say, they're angry, or the robber from is a 3D avatar, that's a very, very different experience when you have a good actor being in your face and getting angry, right? So there's to me, that's the emotional part. So that's why we say, and have stayed on that path of 360 video, because there, the emotional part, the realness part, that's where it is for us. So yeah,
I think the question what might be more related to shooting just in Insta360 world, shooting on an RS1, which is really 2D 360, versus a Pro or a Titan.
that's
3D
the 3D.
360.
Okay. So yeah, stereoscopic, right? So yes, and we provide that. So you can use stereoscopic input, or videos in our platform to create your scenarios. As, let's say, I think it's even more close to real life. But as far as I've seen so far, also with our clients and partners, already the step towards, let's say, 2D 360 video, or already is such a huge advantage and different experience, that, well, the questions for, oh, can we get even more realistic or more emotional, haven't come yet. I think it's an evolution, so it will come. So that's of course, that's what we will follow as well. But from a demand or user experience perspective, from the end users we've seen, there hasn't been much.
That's interesting. That actually makes it way easier for us to get into this because as
Yes.
those of us who have tried this, filming and especially processing in 3D 360 is way more difficult and challenging than doing it in 2D. So
Yeah.
that's actually very encouraging.
Yeah.
Lauren, you had some questions that you wanted to ask, I think. Also.
Yeah, I want to kind of fuse a question, business, effectiveness, and equipment all together.
Okay.
And I had tried 360 video a while back with an Insta360, and I'm a photography person. And a lot of times, if you're a photography person and you delve into, commercial video, you end up hitting the grading, color grading, and production. It just jams you up. You don't get it right. And for 360, trying to think of a stage and everything, it was too much for me. But I've been very interested in a new product that's come out that kind of signals to me that the industry themselves are looking at this, and that's Canon's new dual fisheye,
Yeah.
the 5.2
Yeah.
millimeter.
Yeah.
So it answers, I saw somebody in the questions here talking about stereoscopic vision, and I'm also, that's a huge one. We've been just pumping the same image into the same, into both of our eyes for so long that we've forgotten how different it is when you have the stereoscopic vision and the rest of it. So I'm watching this Canon thing because unfortunately I'm a Nikon person, or I would have had this thing ready. Nikon. I think the Mission 360 has burned them so much they're not going to do anything for a while. But they're now selling a kit for $5,000 where they're selling it as a VR, empathy training, whatever.
Yes.
So if I see we got a lot of people on here that are into it, or maybe they do what do you think about this as an option for people? And $5,000 investment, every turnkey, right? It's the camera, the lens, it's everything.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, that's let's say an easy one, Lauren. It's of course we're super excited and happy that Canon decided to create that, because in the end that's indeed a great way to get into it, to have that experience. It's at the same time, I guess it depends on the type of scenario if this is the right hardware to do that, right? So I understand we have a small production team on our side as well, so we know the challenges that come with production, especially with 360 video production, and that you have to get the hell out of there and all that. And that's partly solved with the 180. At the same time, if your scenario requires it to be a real life situation in the sense that it is a 360 experience that should be, then you have to choose that other part. So it's definitely a great option. At the same time, it always starts with the learning objective. What is it that you want to achieve, right? So if for example, if you do something around occupational safety or safety in general, or safety awareness or whatever, then often, in my experience at least, you need the 360 part, because, okay, so you're running away from a fire, but do you look behind you if you leave somebody behind? Because that is part of what the learning is about. Right. So then there's no escaping, in my opinion. You need the 360 because you need the canvas in order to support the learning objective. If there's more a one-to-one soft skill kind of potential interaction, then you might get away with the 180.
Okay.
For
Like a
sure.
machining, you're teaching, how to use a machine, or there's a process that it's not
Yes.
moving. So this is spatial.
Yes.
Commands. I want to ask you kind of another related question. So let's say the 5,000, well, this webinar will be recorded, and we're going to have some people in perpetuity will come and look at this.
Yeah.
There'll be some people that are looking for VR training. They're not content creators. They want to get training. Maybe an opportunity to, talk a little bit more about yourself. And where would they go? So somebody's watching this webinar and they're like, this stuff sounds great, but I'm not content. how do they find it? Where do they go to get it?
Okay, so a great question. So in a way, here's some stats. That's awesome. Let's get there. Um, um,
Yes, yes, it kind of bolsters my question is here. No, is we've got 2/3 the people have not used it. So even if we convince them that, hey, this is the thing for you, they still have a $5,000, a minimum. And then of course we don't want to talk about processing 8K video on your laptop or something like
mhm,
that. It's a
mhm.
big cost. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, but Lauren, if I understand correctly, so we were talking also about people who are not content creators,
Correct.
who are looking for VR training or to solve a problem which they think they can solve with VR training. And let's always get back to what we're solving in let's say the
Yeah.
business impact. I to me, or let's say what we provide is in a way a two-way street. So one is if it's very context, so bespoke need their own content, own context is needed, they can reach out to the creator community or to us in order to say, hey, we want to get going, we want it, what is the process? So can we create a scenario, can we do the filming? So we also have a partner network around us, right? So where end clients, as let's say we want to call them, can go to and say, we need this, okay, and then they say, okay, cool, we can help you in the scenario creation and the filming. And by the way, we have a partner, a technological partner, Warp VR, which allows me to, as a content creator, to create the content, to have a super efficient workflow, to have it up and running within a couple of weeks. So let's say 4 weeks, to enable you to connect it to your learning management system via SCORM or LTI. That's all available out of the box.
Yeah.
That allows you to see the analytics. So really kind of provide that end-to-end solution.
So you sit as a specialist in the educational sector. You're not from gaming or
No.
things like that. So
No.
you're already existing training. Okay.
Yes.
That's what I'm kind of after is do they go to, you're interested in VR, do you go to a software company? Do you go to a gaming company? The answer is no. You go to advertising, marketing, those traditional.
Learning and development. You might even go to your own learning and development department who know that we exist and the community exists, and answer that question that way. So let's say that's one avenue. So that's the bespoke content. The other avenue is, okay, maybe there's off-the-shelf content already available, because if my question is, oh, I need soft skills, or some form of soft skills, we also have a growing library of already created off-the-shelf content. And we don't create that, but the community creators create that, right? So they make use of the same platform, they make use of the same process, but instead of publishing it only to one company, they say, no, I'm going to publish it into what we call the Warp Store. Then it's available there. And now you can sell your content to multiple companies, right? So that's let's say an additional business model we provide also for creators, where they say sometimes they have an expertise, again, let's say on soft skills, then you start creating your own scenarios, maybe with a launching customer or whatever, but you keep the IP.
Okay.
You design it, you develop it, then it's ready, and now you can sell off-the-shelf content.
So is there a business model or revenue stream for you where you're like a Shutterstock, you're producing, fire scenario trainings and you're producing an immersive piece, agnostic, and you're able to load it up? Do you envision that you could create and then sell these? They're customized.
No. What we envision is what we're after is kind of building the library of the future, where you don't have books, but you will have experiences which you can take out whenever. Let's say
Harry Potter's memory kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I like that.
But we do see that we are, let's say, the platform that allows you to do that, and we're not gonna create that content. And we hope that, well, the world and the demand will be there for it to sustain creators creating and making that content in order for them to publish it, and therefore let the whole library grow. And mind you, there we have partners who do that, right? So we have a Dutch company very focused on the medical elderly care, and they say their business model is, we sell you a headset which is loaded up with I think now 15 or 20 scenarios, various topics, VR immersive scenarios. And we promise you every month or every 2 months, there's a new scenario for you available. So, and they build that on our technology.
Okay. Yeah,
Maybe
thank you.
this-
Just to wrap up the question, I'll
Yep.
let other people talk, is that if you're getting into the partnerships and associations that you're going to make, if you're coming from our organization, is the educational community. That's where you need to start touching and reaching, and people who are providing existing training, linear stand-up PDF style, and that's where your clientele and your market will be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so indeed, let's say the current learning training agencies potentially, but also so you can team up with them, but maybe also within bigger companies, the learning and development, but also on the, let's say, more business side, right? Because a lot of people don't know. So that's, let's say, if we talk about challenges, the challenge is that people are still very unknowing, that they need to have that experience in order to to envision, to really feel what we're talking about. And maybe to because also I'm conscious of time, and I can talk about this whole day, let's say, but maybe let me show you briefly what a scenario can look
Oh,
like.
absolutely, yeah.
Right, because then that hopefully helps in here we go. Here we go. This one I wanted to share sound. Can I share sound? I cannot share sound for this one. Why not? Okay, then I'll won't share sound. Okay, so just so this is the web interface of a scenario you can play. So these are various different demo scenarios. I will put in the link in a moment, also in the chat. So these are open to play, right? So you can play them yourself. But just to give you a brief overview, you can just click it. You can play it in this browser. And we're loading scenario, and hopefully my internet will be able to manage this. So now, welcome to London, right? So this is London, and this is me interacting with the scenario. So here you can say start scenario. And now, so the person who's playing this is the store employee, right? Who has to deal with this customer. And now you can approach the customer. And she's not happy, so we have to deal with her. Okay, so let's say, can I help you?
Real rush. Please, can you help me quickly?
Sure, absolutely. How can I help?
Oh, you said you would. I want an immediate refund. You put me in my overdraft.
Are these built with Unity?
No, sir. These are built with Warp Studio.
Warp
So
Studio,
this is
okay.
the platform.
Okay, very cool.
So it depends.
I noticed from your graphics that you're accounting for accessibility standards, and you got
Yes.
good readability.
Go to the table.
Rush. So that's my wait for your manager. I'll just come back later in the week.
All right. So, well
That's
done.
pretty
Not
cool.
so, right? So that's okay, here we go.
You
So
know, it might be worthwhile going over exactly what was happening there. In the scenario, the actor presented a situation. and then you have multiple choice that you
Yes.
that you can select from, and then
Yes.
you see the consequences of
Yes.
the choice that you make.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and so this was, let's say, an end user experience, right? And there are multiple. Let me put in the no. I'll put it after afterwards. Otherwise, people will start playing during the webinar. That's not a good idea. Okay, so let me show you. So this is a demo. So as an example, so let me show you how you get there. How you as a creator can create such content super easily. And let's say if you really want to do it, you can have this up and running in, well, let's say 2 weeks easily. So how does it work? Let me share my screen again. There we go. All right. So here we are. So this is Warp Studio. So this is the platform we created. This is our technology in order for you to create your own scenarios, right? So here you can add a new scenario, and once you start creating that scenario, you will start with, and I'll do this one with an empty canvas, right? Because you say, okay, what is the learning objective? Who am I? Where am I? What are the dilemmas I have to work through as a learner? So you double click and you start adding a scene type. So a couple of them we just saw. So we have the information, multiple choice, direction, but we also have hotspot and auto transition. So this is where you start creating and building your scenario. So let's start with an information. For example, this is just a welcome scene. Here, this is the scene description. So this is important also for you creators out there, because this is where you put in what should happen in the video. We haven't shot any video, mind you. This is purely storyboarding. So this is where you put in what should happen in the video, and then what you do want to do next. Let's start. Okay, first scene created. And from there, it's really drag and drop, right? So this is also a collaboration tool where you can work together with your client, with the subject matter experts, together visually creating the scenario you need. So let me delete this one. You can end up with something like this. So this is actually the scenario we just played, right? Start scenario, approach the customer. What is it first that you say? And then depending on the choice, you go through A or B. And this is all drag and drop still, right? So this is published, but I can also say, oh no, I need an extra scene in between, right? I can do that, and then I can just reconnect it and good to go. So once you have this and you also filled in all the description, what should happen in the video, at some point you will say, okay, cool, I'm ready to film. I'm ready to get my camera and go out there. And then you just export the scenario. And I'm just curious. I hope you see this, but I'm not. Yeah, you see this. That's awesome. So here you see the script, right? So this is the scenario provide with what you need to film. You once you're done, you can check mark it. So now you have a really effective and efficient way to film exactly what you need. And those videos are short, right? So they're 30, 40, 50 seconds because yeah, you're continuously kind of prompt to continue.
What do you find is a good resolution and kind of a file size boundary? I know whenever I'm dealing with video, that's always I do a lot of web video, hero background stuff, and that's always the challenge.
Yeah.
What do you feel that you work with? It works well.
Well, for us, it's really about what are the headsets capable of, right?
Okay.
So now it's like 5.7 around. So, but of course now with the newer headset, there will be more. We will move towards 8K. So for us, that's also, let's say, the path we're following, right?
Okay.
Because in the end, it depends how what the max resolution is on the devices you can play, and that's what we keep up with. The platform allows you to, or not allows you, does it for you, where they say, for example, if you download on your phone, you can download it in 2K or 4K, right? So the user can have a choice, right? So depending on where you play it, we push the right format and resolution.
Excellent.
So
I assume you can re-edit videos, that this is all, the script is pulling from video resources. And so as you're doing, you can, edit, change the videos and just keep playing the scenario.
yeah, for sure.
Updated. That's very powerful. And I like the fact that you're emphasizing the process, right? Because it's not about the video, it's about that workflow, that path, that logic
Yes.
decision. And it kind of reminded me of Miro,
Yeah.
to where you're using it to plan out the project before you actually build it.
Yeah.
Very cool. I like it.
No, for sure. So that's I'm just hoping. Yes, here we go.
Okay.
Scott, yeah?
No, keep going through this and then I'll have a question.
Okay,
Okay.
awesome. So this is very short, just to show you, let's say, the process. So now you did your filming. You had your script. You knew what to film. You filmed everything. Now you go back to the platform. So now you have your editing, which happens outside of the platform. It uses Adobe Premiere or just the studios that come with the cameras. But the output of that are just MP4s. Right, so you upload them into the media, and then once you upload them, you can connect that piece of scene to that piece of video. So you connect it, you open the video editor, and here you have your 360 imagery. You can play it, and here you have your interactive elements, which you can position in your 360 view. Well, there are some settings I won't bother you with now, but in the end, you get the idea, where you just connect all your pieces of video to the different scenes you have. Then you hit test in order to test the scenario with your client or with the people you design it with, and eventually say, okay, I'm ready. You publish it, and once you publish it, it is available to whoever you grant access to. And it can be 10 people, 10,000 people. That doesn't matter, right? So now, and then you can go into trainees. There you have the different trainees. So you can also connect it to a learning management system, but you can also manage it through here. And then you can even see on an individual level, you can see the different choices people made, right? How fast did they make them? What are the attempts? What are the high scores, etc., etc. So then you have your activity also available. Yeah, maybe let me stop here in let's say showing you, well, the process basically, indeed, from storyboarding to filming to connecting a storyboard with your media, and then have it available to whoever needs access to it.
So you're
Okay.
providing a turnkey solution where you have rostering and assessment of the students. You're not just producing the video, but able to house it and actually, people take it and you're watching the activity and passing and stuff. That's impressive.
One thing that comes up, or that occurs to me, if I'm going to jump into this, I've never done VR training before, and it's like, in a way, where do I start? How do I know what sort of questions should be asked, or what sort of branching should be made? You've been through this so many times that there is a structure that you understand that
Yes.
most of us will not.
No,
So how do you?
Not yet. No, so for sure, Scott. So that's the challenge we see mostly with, let's say, the people we work with, clients, partners, is indeed that mindset of scenario-based, story-based, making it interactive, thinking about consequences, thinking about what could go wrong, and putting that into a scenario. It's not easy, but it's also not difficult in the sense that it's, you know, it's about storytelling. And some people have lost that skill, but we are all storytellers. We just have to kind of rethink that. And of course, we provided a structure in a way to well, structure the thinking. We also provide workshops, kind of train workshops to fast track that, right? So we also do that with partners where we say, okay, you know, in 4 weeks, we're going to teach you all the nuts and bolts in order to be really capable of creating that. But we also have people who are very autodidactic and say, you know, just give me the platform, I'll figure it out myself. And at the same time, start small, right? Start with an onboarding or just a tour around your house. See what it is, what it needs, what you come across. Oh, okay. So, oh, I have to think about this. You know, do I want to open the door or not? If I want to kind of have that decision in the scenario, okay, how do I go about it, right? So they're kind of the different things. I just can say that I've seen a lot of people kind of anxious about the creation process, but at the same time, I've seen so much enthusiasm and creativity just by doing it and by start creating it, having, you know, your first scenario, and then, you know, you can, it's very tangible. You create it, you film it, you publish it, so you can have something in a week, right? So easily, even within a day. It's not big or whatever, but it's something you can experience and you can learn from. So that, you know, being iterative is an important part of the learning process.
If you, Guido, could just, we have a couple questions that have
Yeah.
come up. Is the final output a standalone product, or do learning scenarios always run through Warp VR?
Yeah, always run through Warp VR in the sense that, so the suite, as you might call it. So we have the online platform for creators where you can create your scenarios, where we just saw, and we have the apps with which users can play it, right? Either on web, on tablet, phone, or a headset. But those are connected, right? But also because, hey, how do I know that Scott is knocking on my door and that he can play the scenario? Okay, by providing your email, having a 6-digit code, putting it in the app, and you're good to go, right? So there is, of course, more, in a way, more to it, but it is a closed system.
Mhm. Do you have to have that internet connection while you're doing the training? So
No.
you can go, oh,
No,
okay.
no. So that's a good point. So I didn't mention that earlier. So you can actually download the scenarios on your headset and go offline from there, right? So it's also on your mobile phone. Also, of course, web is not. So you have to have an internet connection to play it on web. But all the other ones, you can just download the scenarios on the device and go off the grid from there. So you don't need an at the beginning, you need an active one. All the attempts of playing will be stored offline on the device. Once you get online, that will be pushed also to the platform, so you see all the data coming in.
All right. So even though it can be run standalone without an internet connection, once the device gets reconnected to the internet, that's where you get your training results
Correct.
reported.
Correct.
Very good.
Kind of a little bit related to this, is the I do a lot of work for government clients, industries, and so sometimes I'm dealing with information, even if it's not proprietary, it gets treated as proprietary, and they are
Yep.
so averse to seeing, it placed on a cloud, or if I'm
Yeah.
using some filter where it's got to reach out and it gets processed at Adobe, they just don't want to do that. Do you run across that, and do you have the ability to create an entirely closed system that a government or a company would feel comfortable in doing? Because I imagine some scenario training might have some liabilities or legal, you're
Yeah.
showing processes or stuff.
Yeah. No, so we have clients as the likes of Shell, ASML, banks, which are,
Those are the types.
right? Those are, and we also have the Dutch government as a client, right? And even the Singaporean government, from a defense perspective. Pharmaceuticals, also interesting. So and at the same time, everybody says that they're unique and it's you know, the toughest security ever. But we withstand those kind of tests and that. So I'm very confident at our security level. At the same time, you know, defense kind of that's maybe, well, indeed a level of its own. We don't have a on-premise solution, right? So it is a SaaS, software as a service. It is on servers. It is all that. And so far, with our security measures and the enterprise grade and all that, we have been able to service also those clients. So well, never. We had one instance with the Dutch police where they wanted to have the videos on their own server. But at the same time, that's only a part solution because it's also still part software as a service, because we still need to communicate over that, you know, with those videos in order to provide those scenarios, right? So yeah, maybe a little bit long answer, but so short, no, we don't have it on premise. I'm not sure what will come, but in essence, we are a software as a service platform.
My answer that I have to provide to my clients in that situation is that the world is going to a cloud distributed computing.
Yes.
And so I can't do anything about it. So I get pushed into, not pushed in, it's a burden, but I have to whitelist. I have to provide a security, or like you're doing, I have to provide security that they feel comfortable with.
Yes.
That's a tremendous burden on me
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
front. But
Yeah.
I have a couple clients that I've gotten a whitelisted server. And now I find that other people come to me and say, "Hey, I hear you have a solution because you can't get around it, but I hear you have a certified solution, or you have met compliance or found
Yes.
a way.
Yes.
Share that with
Yeah.
us." So
Yeah.
that's the, you know, to anybody watching this,
Yep.
you're not going to get away from the cloud-based. You've got to just step it up and provide a solution that your client will trust. It's up to the
Exactly.
burden on.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes that means that we actually get penetration tests from those clients in order to really test what we are and how we did it, and that's fine, and we welcome that, because you know we also, if something has been found, we can improve it and we're better for it. So
Yeah, in my
very
case, I
welcome.
had to move it to a more secure server. They didn't want the virtual private, or it had to be its own
Yep.
server with its own firewall. It ended up, just for people out there, because there's a question here about costs, and we can get to that next. It ended up costing me $2,500 a year to host this on a, you know, fully certified protected server. But that's now a annual cost that they pay as
Yep.
part of the, and I have a small little, you know, pass-through fee on top of it. So it's, you know, initially I'm like, "Oh, are you kidding? $2,500 for a server?" But now oh, okay. Now I understand. You're in the big
Yep.
league.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
but
All
there's
right.
a question here about the cost of the service. As to much as you're able or capable of. Again, people will be watching this, they might be interested in.
For sure. Let's because we are quite open about that. So we have the pricing even on our website, but let me share with you so I can briefly walk you through it. So this is the pricing, and important to start with is unlimited trainees and views. So it doesn't matter for the pricing if you want to train 10,000 or 100,000 people, right? So there's no limitation there, no views, whatever. The variable for the pricing is how many scenarios do you have available to those trainees at any given time, right? So in let's say the base or start plan, we have 2 scenarios which you can have continuously available. So that's why we call them slots, right? So you can have 10 draft scenarios, but you can only have 2 available published at any given time. And of course, if you want more, you can increase it. And then also the monthly price will go up, but starting price, 2 scenarios, and well, monthly billing, annual billing. Oh, let me go to USD. So monthly billing 480 if you do annual billing. So, you know, around 5K a year, you have all you need to start, to provide it to your clients, to create stuff yourself when you want to sell it off the shelf. That's all possible. So let's there's one or two things more, but let's leave it at that.
Now,
Yeah, the
this is
learning management
cost,
system integration is impressive.
yeah, this is cost that you pass on to your client. But you also have options for how I can get started with this and explore with it that I believe don't cost anything, correct?
No, for sure. So as a creator, we are happy to provide you with the platform so you can create also even your own scenarios which you can use for your own marketing, because in the end we understand that you need to sell this, right, to your clients. So there's there's no upfront cost in that sense. So you can start creating, find a client, and then once that client is active, then we start let's say the billing, the invoicing, and also there we have tools in place so you as a creator can have multiple clients. So we do that through what we call workspaces. So you will be the main contractor, and you will have also within Warp Studio have the multiple spaces where you service your clients. So they will have their own space, so their own data, right? So there is no mix up between employee data from various clients of yours. You just have separate rooms for them to be able to service them to the as best as you can.
Just to make sure that what you're saying is that if there's people watching this and they're good at video, they got 360 video and they want to get into this VR training and they happen to know the hospital, somebody at the hospital down the street and the rest, they can come in, grab the software, pull out, a demo piece,
Yes.
shadow box or light box, if you will, from like
Yeah.
Shutterstock. Go to them, pitch the idea, get the contract, weave in the cost of this thing and come back and have
Yes.
themselves a new project.
Yes.
Man,
It's
I highly recommend
that.
that. I might give that a
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
you can
No,
see
that's
why I was so excited by this.
Yeah, I didn't understand that part of it, but yeah, that's a smart way to do it because they sell the
Yeah.
product and they come back and they're just passing through the cost on their contract
Yeah.
as the service. It's
Yeah. And also there, also in the beginning, we can help. If you need me to be there in some meeting, I can be there. If you need demo material where you say, oh, I can use that customer service one I just showed you in order to wheel in a client, let me know. We can provide you with that, with a couple of demo scenarios, which you might be able to use towards your clients, right? So this is let's partner up. This is not, oh, here, go ahead. This is about building also our relation, and furthermore, of course, the relation with your clients.
yeah.
I see this as more than just learning or training. This can be more for just telling the story in various ways.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
going to ask you about the empathy engine stuff. You see a lot. Sorry, I
Yeah.
go over there. But you see a lot of people talking about VR for empathy. Do you have projects like that? They're cultural. They're not, an industrial scenario, but they're that type of genre.
No, for sure. So, in the end, that's where we started. That's where we focus. But yes, once you start understanding the possibilities, very different, or not very, but education is also a growing, let's say, industry for us. And even where we see that students start creating their own content and publishing it and making it, and it's a super cool way for them to get all the knowledge and theory and all that stuff under their belt, because in order to create a scenario, you really have to envision right? What should happen, what could happen, all that. So there's tremendous learning already in even the creation part. The fire department, the Dutch fire department in the Netherlands is a client, and they created scenarios which for the public, in order to show them and emotionally let them feel why it's important to have a smoke detector in your house, because you can tell people that's important, but now you're going to experience why it's important and how less time you have if you don't have one, right? So let's say the notion of education or learning is is broader than just purely training in kind of different heavy industries or whatever. It's really about a different level of hitting people between the eyes, right? Where they can feel what you're trying to tell them, instead of, well, let them read or view even a 2D or even a 360 video on YouTube is passive, right?
Mhm.
It's not active. You don't have to do things. So there's no, but in the engagement also comes from being able to decide, do I go left, do I go right, do I say this, do I say that? All that stuff is important to connect to your end user in one way or another.
It's the same push we see in the video game with the open worlds or the
Yeah.
consequences of. It's interesting that that the consequences of your decision, you want to see that in, you don't want to play the same game. You watch your friend playing Halo and he's going down the hallway and doing, that's boring now. You want it to be your own. And this is a wonderful technology for that. And the workflow I can't wait to actually play with that.
I like the
Video.
interface, and it reminds me a lot of maybe back in the day, Director or Apple Media Tool.
Yeah, it really emphasizes storyboarding, which if you
Yes.
get enamored with the tool and you don't start with a piece of paper, you're going to end up most likely with some garbage.
I think that it helps organize your thoughts prior to filming.
Yes.
When you want to tell a story, and you start out and it's in your head, and this makes it, like you pointed out, storyboarding makes it so much easier, because then you can go through, and as you're going along doing the storyboarding, all the different angles and questions you can ask yourself as to which way you want to go when you're doing that. So
Yeah.
this offers a real chance to, it's not just for training, but I think for telling the story, or from a marketing standpoint as well.
Yes. Yeah. No,
Plus
and
from saving money, because unless you write
Mhm.
that storyboard and then it never changes, right? You just got the story, you nailed it the first time. If you go and pull out your equipment before then, you're wasting money because you're going to be reshooting things and
yeah,
do not do it.
no,
Yeah,
no, for
you
sure.
come back after the fact and you go, damn, I should have thought of that before.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I don't
Yeah.
have the scene where they leave the house after the fire. Darn it, we burned the house down. That's too bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
That's it. So
And
in
the other thing that you get out of, the
sorry.
other thing that is exciting about it is the analytics that you can get out of it afterwards, so you can find out, and again apply that to marketing knowledge, and that's priceless.
Yes. Yeah. No,
That
for
was the
sure.
point
So
Scott was making at the original part, is that one of the things that's hard for us with these new technologies is that they're new, so we don't have a lot of data to sell. But when
Mhm.
you're selling it to a business owner, a person running a successful business, they don't care about, the whiz bang, the excitement that
nope,
you carry. It does not carry over to them. You have got
nope.
to talk in their language, which is, how much will this save you? And if you can't, like, you need to pay me more money than you pay the other people or whatever to do this. Why? If you can't answer that, it's
Yeah.
not a business, then you're just
Yeah.
doing a hobby.
No, so let's say from that perspective, um, we've seen, because people are enthusiastic when you show this, right? They say, "Oh, okay, cool." That, especially when they experience it, that's
Mhm.
and that's good. But it doesn't mean that they're gonna pay you money to actually to create something for their impact. So that also brought us back to, okay, but where do people want to well, solve their pain now and not in 2, 3, 5 years, right? Because that's yeah, okay, cool, super cool. You know, well, maybe in 2 years we'll have it on the budget and the agenda. So bringing it back to, okay, where is really that business impact we can make the difference. That's where we said, okay, this is about human interactions in high stakes situations. That was kind of the summary of it. To build on that, we say, okay, so where does that happen already? So that's actors, role playing, right? Wherever companies are spending money for actors and role playing, there's already a business need, and apparently there's already budget. But now, if we can tell them, and I'm more and more sure of let's say that message resonates, where you say, okay, but how often can you train with an actor? You know, it's one time, 20 minutes or an hour if you're lucky, right? And even that is for the happy few. It's because that's super costly and resource intensive. But now, if you recreate such scenarios with, well, the technology you just saw, now you have it not only, and now you don't have it one day of 365 days, but you can have it all year long. People can train, retrain, and again, bringing it back to how sure are you that they will show or exhibit the behavior you want them to behave in such a situation. Bringing it back to where we started, if you want to be sure that people in a robbery scenario don't start acting like a hero because they think they can handle it, but because they do, things go very wrong very quickly, right, into disastrous consequences, then the question is, okay, now do you know of all your employees, and whether that's 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever the number is, that they actually are properly trained in order to exhibit and show and do the right behavior under stress? And that's a question, I think, if you press on it, people will lie awake from, because the business consequences are huge if you don't have a handle on that.
Another option I think is focus groups. Companies that have conduct focus
Yes.
groups
Yes.
could create virtual focus groups so that they don't have to bring people in from outside. They could just send them a link to go to this and go through the scenario of what would they like, or how do they see something.
Yeah. Awesome. And you know, Lauren, that's the 100%. And maybe in addition, you can say, now my focus group is, I don't know, 50 people a month. I don't know the number, but
Yeah.
you know, that's a limited
Yeah.
N.
They
But
can really crank up the numbers on that, and I think that they wouldn't have a problem understanding the numbers as far as the cost to the benefit out of it for
Yeah.
their application.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to try to explain to them why it's costing this much. They already know, because they're already accustomed to setting up those scenarios so that they can get the response that they're looking for.
Yes.
Um,
Great insight.
so we're at an hour and 15 minutes in the presentation. And
This is
in
a
a
good
way,
one. This is a good one, Scott.
yeah, I believe that. That's yeah. But we're still only scratching the surface of an awful lot. But you, Guido, you have tremendous resources on your website to take people way farther into this.
Is he a member? Are they a member?
No, not yet. Talk about
What's
that.
the matter, Guido?
I don't know. That's
It seems like we're a market waiting to tap for you.
that's true. So
Okay,
I'm
let's get
really
back
happy
to
that
the
Scott reached out.
Yeah, let's get back to the website and resources. Where can people find out more?
Obviously, on the website, warpvr.com. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm there sharing content. We have a quite extensive help page. So help.warpvr.com, where we have how-to guides. We are, we're open in what we do, what the resources we have, and sharing them. So there's a lot out there. So webinars, we have that on the help side, we have different how-to guides, the different answers to even resolution questions, right? So we have a chat, of course. If you have any questions, drop them in chat. You have the whole team at your disposal. So yeah, and of course, if you want to try or take Warp Studio for a spin, let me know. Happy to set you up. I already give, let's say, the demo I normally give on to get started. So you're already good to go. Just send me the details on on which I can create the demo account, and then I'm happy to do so.
I'm getting the impression that as a training company, you provide good training on your products.
It doesn't look like it's going to be that hard to work with. That's what I like about it.
No, that's true.
I'm curious how you built it, what the software was behind it. It's because you've taken all of the complexity out of it, and it's a nice looking interface where the
Yes.
user. I
Yeah,
love
stripped out a lot of the scripting and
you
what
strip
have
it
you.
all out. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
There a lot's being done for them. I'd be curious
Yeah.
to see that. Probably some pretty serious code in the background.
Yeah, that's and of course that's what we been working on for the past 7 years, right? And as a let's say, it tends to get even better because we're working on a total overhaul of the whole Warp Studio interface. So enabling even more easy creation, even a little bit more almost drafting, right? So now, for example, some users say, it feels kind of definite what I'm putting in there already. So we're also working on that. So a lot of stuff is happening, and we'll probably see the first release before summer.
This kind
You're
of
working in an industry where everything's improving too. Your cameras are getting better. Sorry about that, Scott. And so that's pretty cool. You're an up arc. You're going to continue eating into the traditional training market because you're getting better and cheaper while their cost is plateaued. It's not going down, and their effectiveness is, as all the research is showing, it's decreasing.
Actually, I don't see it as eating into the traditional training as much as here. So one of my clients is a training company. They do their seminars, and they probably always will, but they will be able to have a far more effective VR training that provides, better results. And also, what they really are doing is they are training people who then go back to, let's say, the school or whatever, and then they're supposed to be training their other teachers.
Exactly.
Well, if they have the resource of a headset with all these scenarios in it, they're going to be so much more effective. So this actually makes the traditional training company not obsolete, but far more effective, I think.
Well, if they don't adapt.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. If you don't adapt, you're going to be a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Kind of like the printing industry was about 15 years ago.
What industry?
The printing industry.
Oh, print, yeah. How industries keep changing. Talking though about the future, in a way that sort of training that you have right now, which is scenario, multiple choice, consequence. Has been around roughly forever. I remember back in the 80s, the computer-based training, that this was so hot, but it was exactly the same thing. And now it's progressed. I'm wondering what will the future be. So for instance, when a scenario is presented and then I have a certain amount of time, I'm presented with multiple choices, and I never thought about that one, but that looks like a good choice, so I chose that. Whereas in the real world, I'm presented with a situation and I have to make a choice without being presented with this. is there a way to have someone voice a response to a question, have the headset using AI or whatever, actually then interpret that and then branch into the correct result?
Yeah. Now, so let's say I interpret that question in a few ways, Scott. But let's say the most easy answer is that we have voice recognition, right? So from a headset, you can you don't have to click the answer, but you can actually speak out loud, and then the system will pick that up and select that answer, which already has an additional benefit because you speaking and you hearing yourself has already so much more impact. Of course, we get the question often also with AI and different tools out there where you can just randomly speak to an avatar and they will talk back and whatnot. And of course, there's a benefit to that. I'm not sure that we might come there, but it will take a long time because we use video, right? Because we use actors, because we use what we use in sense of the canvas, so to speak. At the same time, we also see benefits in doing it this way because now you can we are in a world of training and learning, right? So, okay, so maybe no, in real world, you don't think of that answer, but now you're prompted with it, so you can think about it, and now you can actually choose it and experience the consequences. And if we tie that back to actor training, what often happens in actor training is and maybe even in, let's say, that AI's part, it's often about what we call the performance zone, right? That's not about learning because you don't want to mess up in the with the actor because all your peers are watching and they might make fun of you because you say something stupid and you don't want to hear that back at the coffee later on. So it's not learning zone, it's a performance zone. So this also brings back the ability to do stuff, to figure it out for yourself, to make mistakes and that. So to me, there's a value and also standardization value, because if anybody can say anything to everybody, then the whole analysis of, hey, what is wrong, what is not, and how do people perform becomes a whole lot more difficult, right? So there are pros and cons to that. Maybe as a last part of that, of course we're looking at AI, but to us the most close by thing is that we're going to help you in creating the interactive scenarios, right? So what is the right prompt? What is maybe different ways to say that? Maybe how can you make it even more compelling or challenging? All that stuff in the designing of it, that's where, for us, let's say the first value now is when we're looking at AI. So that's kind of that's the step we're taking now.
You have a lot to draw from for AI.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to be wrapping it up. But so if there's any further questions that someone wants to ask, put it in the chat or click the raise your hand button, and then I'll open it up so that you could just speak. Go ahead and do that. I definitely want to thank you, Guido, for putting this on. Like Lauren said, this is exciting. It really is, because it opens up a huge new market that most of us we would have had no resources to be able to enter this otherwise.
No, true. Democratizing VR training, right? That's the
Yep, absolutely,
part of it.
absolutely.
We have
Okay.
a question about 3D. Wouldn't it be provide more? I think they're talking stereoscopic,
Right.
but just talking to that, maybe the importance of it.
We discussed that, right?
We
Yes.
did, yeah, but
Do
it's
you prefer, I guess, from a because stereoscopic is you know, especially if you're starting to move into 8K, you're handling 2 video files and the rest of it. It's quite a big production. Is it worth it in your experience? Do you have a preference? What's been your, you know, 2D versus stereoscopic for a scenario type training? Is it worth it?
Well, again, let's say I think for now it's not even that worth it, right? Because a lot of when at least that's my experience when you talk to, let's say, end clients or potential clients or whatever, that's not something that's not a question they ask.
Okay.
Because once they have that experience, it's just an overwhelming and high impact experience, even as it is with, you know, only 2D. The whole part of being a 360, being able to feel a sort of teleportation from one place to another is a whole leap as it is. So I'm sure it will be part of the questions later on, but for now, there's no real benefit to start with, at least in order to, I don't know, have better conversion or better impact or whatever. I think that impact is minimal at the start.
Okay. I think that answers it. And
Yeah.
that
I
kind
think
of puts that.
I think 360 is a lot more immersive in trying to tell the story of what they're talking about versus the 180, because the 180 only goes so far,
Yeah.
whereas the 360 that immerses them in the scene.
Yes, that is true.
I was just going to add the point that we were kind of touching on is that one of the troubles in this industry, if you're, you know, trying to run a business, you go to a client and you show them this, they haven't seen it, and they're wowed by it. And you as the seller, you're like, oh my gosh, I've got it. They love this. They got a sale, but you walk out of there with no sale because yeah, they're wowed by the technology, not the pitch that you're making. The pitch didn't make sense to them as a business person, and that's
Exactly. Yeah. No, and that's a very valid and important point, and we come across daily. Is again tie it to that business impact. So in the introduction, we talked about spiced. Well, whatever model you choose, but we use spiced, the acronym: situation, pain, impact, compelling event, right? And that's also where that compelling event is important. Why now? Why should they pull the trigger now in saying, no, I want it? You know, I have a great experience. I have had thousands of conversations, and I think maybe 2 of them were really disappointed about in the story I had to tell. But that doesn't mean that I have 1,000 clients, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of, oh, I can definitely use this down the road. I can use it for onboarding. I can use it for this, that, all that. But that doesn't mean that they're going to do it tomorrow. So keep finding where the real business value is. That's the challenge.
it's a theme we try to keep saying is don't get caught up in the, you know, the fun of it, because it has to be a business, and it can
Yes.
be soul crushing, especially with this, to go into somebody to sell them something,
Yeah.
and the first half hour they're like, oh my, this is amazing, you know, they got the head start, and you walk out of there with nothing in it, and
No.
because you're going up, down, and it's the business case that supports it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're at the end of this
Yes.
webinar. Thank you, Guido. I really enjoyed this. This was very good.
Thank you.
All
Pleasure
right.
was all mine.
Yeah. Okay.
Is
then.
there any kind of discounts for IVRPA members?
We
You get to try it for free.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. I mean, and the
right,
client
there's no
basically regular-
upfront costs, right? Try it, use it, especially as a creator. As an end business, it's different, right? So there we say, okay, after 1 month you have to decide yes, no, go. But for you as creators, it's more about, okay, try it, make something, use it as a tool to also make business and yeah, walk out at clients with business. So there's no so that I would say that that's a pretty significant discount.
Mhm.
We have a question, important one. The scenarios. Remember, we were going to give it to them, but we
Yeah,
will all
yeah.
be playing. We would all be playing and pretending like we were listening. But now you can give us the link.
Very good. No, but I did.
I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna
Oh
see how I
no.
did on the
Oh wait.
plane.
Jeff, I send it to you personally. So that's apparently I don't know why.
I'm gonna
Here
try
we
that
go.
customer one. I think I know how to handle that customer. She was getting.
Here we go. Go handle customers. Here we go. Everybody. So this is it. warpvr.com/demos. And I will also put in another link. So to be clear, so this you can play just offline without logging in, but you can also only play it online. If you want to play it in a headset or on your mobile, you need to do something else. And I will send you that link now. So you have to register. It's super easy, but then it will mean that you get the 6-digit code in order to play also these scenarios, right? So go to warpvr.com/demos to play it online on web. Go to the Play Warp link to register, get a 6-digit code, which you can then use in the various apps, and then to be fully, let's say, compatible, here we have a link to the help page where it shows you where you can find the Warp VR apps, how you can log in, and all that. So here you have it.
Okay. This webinar will be available on the IVRPA website to members, and we'll list those links there as well. Unless somebody else has something that they want to drop in right now. I don't hear anything or see anything, so then Guido, thank you so much for your presentation and introduction into how we can do this. This is a remarkable opportunity, I think, for those who want to take advantage of it.
Likewise, thank you, Guido.
Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me. It was a pleasure, and well, I'm happy that we did it in the, let's say, more interview style. So I had fun doing it. It was a pleasure to meet you all and have the conversation, because that's where it should be. So again, thank you, Scott, for finding me and reaching out.
Before we go, everybody, let's remember we have the conference coming up June 25th through the 27th in Las Vegas. Go to Scott. You want to put the link up there for the website?
All they have to do is go to the ivrpa.org website, and you'll have the link to the conference right there.